Are you ready for a show that talks sports from the fans' point of view?
We've seen Michael Jordan score 37 points a game in his era. How many could he score in today's NBA?
There's not a player out there who I'd rather have than LeBron James.
Are you ready for a show that isn't afraid to challenge anyone when it comes to sports? If Adam Silver really wanted to fix tanking in the NBA, he would stop rewarding teams by giving them the best chance to win the draft lottery.
I mean, how many times will Roger Goodell drop the ball on handling domestic violence in the NFL?
Look, athletes have every right to talk politics, but if the fans stop tuning in, that's their right.
Then you're ready for Talk Back, a podcast where two fans debate the media narrative and discuss the world of sports as we see it.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome back to another edition of Talk Back. I am one of your hosts, Eric Nesbit, and in the studio, thankfully with me tonight is Justin Gay, because Justin, your wife is on the brink of labor for your second child. I was really nervous that you wouldn't be here this week because we've got some big plans for segment 2 of the show, and I was not wanting to cancel those plans, and I think our listeners will see that coming up here in segment 2. But Justin, your wife is 9 months pregnant. You've got a baby boy on the way. Are you sitting here nervous across the studio from me?
Well, I've got my cell phone here waiting to make sure I don't get a text that we've gone into labor or water's broken, so I have to take off running. My wife wasn't very happy with your text to me earlier in the day before we recorded saying the baby can't come yet. She's ready for baby boy to come out. So
why did you show her that?
Well, I just said, look, you can't have this baby until we get done this podcast. We've got a special guest, our first ever interview going on. We can't reschedule this. So she's done her part. So we'll see what happens here through the weekend. But maybe I'll have a 4th of July baby. I don't know.
I'm wanting to get through this episode with you so that you can get back home and have the rest of your week to celebrate the birth of your baby boy. But
wait, so you're saying, should I just turn my phone off for the next hour?
No, I am not going to suggest that, because then when your wife listens to this episode and she finds out that I asked you to turn your phone off, I'm really going to be in trouble. So, big episode this week. We are obviously in depth with free agency in the NBA, and that's going to take up all of segment 1. Segment 2, as Justin alluded to, we've got a special guest interviewing with us for segment 2, so we're excited to tell you more about that. But first, I do want to hit up the World Cup a little bit, because we're not going to have time on this episode to talk about it, but we know who the final 8 teams are going to be. And Justin, there were a few surprises, and we talked about the need for soccer to grow in the United States. We needed star power in things like the World Cup so that those eyeballs stay affixed to the television through some of these big games. Unfortunately, Ronaldo is out because Portugal lost to Uruguay. Messi is out because Argentina lost to France. Then you had things like Spain losing to Russia. And so even though England and you've got Croatia and Brazil, Belgium, Uruguay, France, we still have a very good final 8. We don't have some of the star power that we thought we might get. And so now we're looking at guys like Harry Kane from England. Their next match is against Sweden. And we've actually set up, Justin, another interview for the future, probably after the World Cup's over, with some of our listeners in England and Spain, so that we can start to learn more about soccer, react to this World Cup, and then talk about how we can get more information about EPL, Championship League, and La Liga out of Europe. But that's all we're going to be able to talk about for World Cup on this episode. That's all we're going to have time for, because NBA free agency, as I said, it's hot and heavy, and you, I know, have questions for me about LeBron James and then other player movements that are happening around the league. So when we return, it's segment 1, all NBA, and I'll try to stay level-headed as Justin asks me about the future and legacy of LeBron James.
Welcome back. It's time to jump into segment 1. If you've been listening to the show, Eric and I have been all over NBA free agency. We've been discussing it now for months, what was going to happen. We knew the names that were going to be out there, what was going to happen come Saturday night. Things got off to a quick start. Both Eric and I were up very late on Saturday night trying to follow all the signings that kept taking place. But we got to start with what happened on Sunday night. By design, LeBron James, agent Rich Paul, Clutch Sports decided to wait until ESPN, NBA TV had stopped live recording, and they just put out a simple old-school press release to say that LeBron James would be signing a 4-year max deal with the Los Angeles Lakers worth $154 million. Obviously, they learned what happened the first time he left Cleveland, not to go in that direction, keep it very simple, keep it classy. Upon his leaving, we've discussed many times where LeBron will go, where he should go, what would be best for his legacy. He decides to join the Lakers. His team took a courtesy meeting with Philadelphia on Sunday afternoon that just further cemented his decision to go to Los Angeles. So, Eric, you're a longtime LeBron James fan. Everybody that's listened to the show knows that. Do you like the move that he made to the Lakers, or did he miss an opportunity to contend for titles by not going to Philly?
One of the biggest things we talked about over the past couple of weeks, and I'll try to stay calm here, was LeBron's legacy. Is he chasing rings now, or is he cementing a legacy in some other way in the game of basketball or a lifestyle in general? LeBron James, now we know, is potentially looking at the bigger picture. And I've actually heard some analysts talking about this to where it's no longer potentially about rings for LeBron anymore. It's about what he's done for the game and the NBA as a whole in his career outside of winning championships. What it tells me, because you and I are both on record as saying his path to another finals appearance or potential championship is going to be easier if he stays in the East. Now, I will say those were opinions we held for the last 12 months prior to knowing how good Boston and Philly would become, because we felt like the Cavs would always have enough pieces to kind of stay the number 1 or number 2 seed in the East and ultimately make it to the finals. We now feel that that may not be true. We even saw Toronto challenge for that top spot in the East, although briefly this year. But Boston and Philly, they have arrived, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. So the aspect of making it to the finals and then ultimately getting to Golden State in the finals might be a moot point. And so, yes, by moving west, I don't love it. I've always been against the move to the west because you have to get through Golden State or now Houston just to get to the finals. But I think we're finding that with LeBron, it's that damned if you do, damned if you don't type of thing that we've talked about. And I think he has now just chosen a path to where he says, I want to be a Laker. He signed a 4-year deal. So that to me means he's going to finish his career as a Laker, and that gives him time to build a team. He's only going to be in his prime another 2 or 3 years, but it gives him a chance to build a team in LA around him. No other superstars, as you'll talk about in a minute, followed him there, at least for now. So this is LeBron's team. This is LeBron putting on the purple and gold and becoming, hopefully, one of. Now, he won't ever be the Laker legend. He'll become one of the top 5 or 6 Lakers, maybe, if they go on to do something. You can't eliminate Shaq and Kobe and Magic and Kareem. I mean, that's just not going to go away just because LeBron goes there. But he wants to be a part of that family and build something. And so, title or not, I think this is what we have to accept. And like I said to you many times before, he's going to look in the mirror, and no matter what players come with him or how many titles he has left, he has now made a decision that says, I delivered in Cleveland the title that I promised, and now I'm going to do whatever the heck I want. And to the rest of you, you say what you will, but this is where I'm going.
Do you feel like in his mind, if he brings a title to the Lakers, that it somehow means more than bringing one to Philly? Like, it will elevate his legacy further by bringing one to a market and a team and a franchise like the Lakers?
Well, I'd have to answer that one of 2 ways, because on its face, no. I mean, the Lakers are a very, very storied franchise in terms of titles. They've won a few titles more recently than the Sixers have. And so it's not like he'd be delivering something like he did in Cleveland that they've just been longing for so long. I think back to the Sixers days with Allen Iverson and the hope that we had, you and I as fans, with Iverson and their run to deep playoff runs and even to the finals, thinking it's finally going to happen. But if he goes to that Sixers team, he joins Embiid and Simmons and Fultz and now we know Redick and others, where LeBron is a leader, certainly, but he's a piece of a team that was already successful. And so I don't know that that's the great savior of the Sixers that it would have been like it was in Cleveland. And so if he wins one in LA, it's just going to be another banner on the ceiling in LA, really.
But in terms of the media coverage, it seems like the Lakers, the hype around that team, that organization, what it could do for his brand, I'm just trying to figure out in my mind what he's thinking, because from a basketball standpoint, this is a stupid move, in my opinion, because Philly has a pathway where they only have to take on one team. And there's already reports coming out of Boston, and even the Chicago Sun-Times running a report that Kyrie and Jimmy Butler are trying to come up with a way to play together next year. Pre-show, you were talking about a report you saw about the relationship Butler has with some of the players there on the Timberwolves. So Boston may not even be Boston in another year, where there's nothing coming in the East. You look at that Western Conference, what the Lakers are going to have to go through. To me, it just doesn't make any sense, because it almost seems like LeBron and Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka, they're setting things up for 2019. That there's something that they have. Either it's they're going to wait for Kawhi, they're going to just wait the Spurs out, let Kawhi come there and not bleed their roster out like I talked about on Twitter. That would be very silly if they did. Will LeBron have patience? It seems like he will, signing a 4-year deal, something he never did in Cleveland. It was always those 1+1 deals. So now he's giving them his commitment for at least 3 years. It's a 4-year deal, 3+1. But to me, it just doesn't make any sense from a basketball standpoint to go west. You're going to have to deal with the Warriors. The Rockets got Chris Paul back on a big deal, something that we'll discuss here a little bit later in the show. And then you just start looking at the roster of teams in the West. Portland, Oklahoma City, Utah. You have New Orleans. You have the Spurs, Timberwolves. Denver has gotten better. And the thing that I don't hear people talk about is LeBron with Cleveland. They got to play 52 games versus Eastern Conference teams. We talked about the fact the Eastern Conference is not very good. Now it's reversed. LeBron's going to play 52 games versus Western Conference teams and only 30 versus the Eastern Conference now. So his regular season is not going to be the same type of cakewalk where they can take those stretches of 3 and 4 weeks, and if things are bad in the locker room, he's not getting along with Luke Walton, that things will just fix themselves. You can very quickly find yourself out of the race. How many times did we discuss the Western Conference last year where 3 through 10 were separated by a handful of games, and every show we couldn't even figure out who was going to be ranked where when the final playoff seedings came out, because there was so much change going on. So from a basketball side, I just felt like Philly was such a better move for him. 2 young guys, they could have built around him. They had cap space. They have a structure within the organization that they want to go. They have picks. They have assets. And they, in the East, the top team just got diluted by LeBron. So the only team they really have to deal with is Boston going forward. And there's a lot of things that are in flux with Boston that could change. So in my mind, I'm just trying to figure out, what is LeBron thinking? Obviously, his family's important, what his sons are going to do, what his family wants to do, what he can do with his brand, what he wants to do after basketball. LA is perfect for that. But when we talk about on-court legacy, winning titles, getting back to the finals year in, year out, and giving yourself a chance, Eric, I felt like he really missed it on this opportunity, and I'm confused of what he was thinking.
I got to tell you, I can't disagree with anything you've said from a basketball perspective. You are 100% correct on all of the thoughts I had about LeBron James, his legacy in terms of winning titles. Now, everyone who listens to this show knows that LeBron is my favorite player of all time, but I'm now going to be down on him for 1 second to talk honestly about one thing. And it's that what we see now is that there are ulterior motives to a lot of things that he's done over the past couple of years. You named one of them. The fact that he signed 1-and-1s with his hometown Cleveland Cavaliers all through this last, 4-year title run with no long-term commitment. And we know how, we're not going to repeat all of that. We know, and listeners know, how much that has hurt the team and their ability to move players around, possibly costing them Kyrie, possibly costing them chances at other free agents that won't commit there, like a Paul George, or like, who knows all the other players that we don't even know about publicly, because they won't come there if LeBron won't be there. Now, curiously, he signs a 4-year deal in LA. After a year ago, well, not quite a year ago, LA dumps a bunch of salary to who? The Cleveland Cavaliers. And then LeBron, we said it 7 months ago. does Cleveland realize what's just happened here? Because they've just opened the door for LeBron to be able to,
they
to
opened
go
up
there.
the pathway. So
It
you
was-
think when Colby Altman brought that deal to LeBron, he was like, yes, and throw Clarkson in and whoever, bring Luol Deng in. We'll take that contract
I can't deny that it might have happened that way, because you're seeing now, a couple of days after